Hello everyone, and thank you very much for tuning into FunAhead TV. Today's episode is unfortunately quite a bittersweet one because it is time for me to sell my beloved 2007 BMW 530xi Wagon. So in this video, I'm going to give you guys a thorough tour of the exterior, interior, under the hood. I'll discuss some of the high points of the maintenance history since my ownership of the car over the last 45-ish thousand miles in 4.5 years. And then we'll end the video with a cold start and a nice little drive, so stay tuned. All right, now, like I said, this is my 2007 BMW 530xi Wagon. It is 6-speed manual and all-wheel drive, as the X in XI denotes. It has been a great car for me. I have had this thing for just over 4.5 years, or right at 4.5 years, I would say, and put maybe 45,000 miles on it in my ownership. It currently has just over 168,000 miles on the clock. Just right off the bat, the reason I'm getting rid of this car is because I recently purchased a 100 series Land Cruiser to fill the need of my new daily driver because I need a tow vehicle. So unfortunately this car no longer is needed in my fleet as much as I absolutely love this car and would love to keep it for a very long time. So I will shut up now. Let's go ahead and start off by doing a tour around the exterior of the car. And as you can see, cosmetically, it is in quite good condition. Could be better. There are a few little blemishes here and there, which I'll point out. But for the most part, this car is in very good shape. This is my dog, Wiley. He's gonna help us with the exterior tour here really quick. Starting at the front of this car, you can see that the thing is in good shape cosmetically. So you can see in the hood, there are some rock chips kind of on the front end. Pretty typical stuff for a higher mileage car. The bumper, which I did repaint a few years back because it had been pretty beat up by rocks, I went ahead and just had the whole thing professionally repainted. It does have a few little rock chips you can see down here. And let's see, there's a few little ones on this side, but overall this bumper is in very good shape. Working around the side, you can see that the car is in solid shape. No cosmetic issues to note down the side. One thing to note, actually, both mirrors have some chipping paint right here. And so this actually has basically been the same way during my entire ownership. It hasn't really spread or got any worse. So let's keep working down the side here, work around towards the back. The back end is, for the most part, flawless. The brake light does have some kind of localized cracking in it. This was done by the previous owner. I have no idea how that was done, but you know, you can see it when you're up close, and you actually, you know, having the lights on doesn't even cause it to look any more obvious. Cracking hasn't spread at all. It's just kind of there, unfortunately. Working our way around the back. Sorry, I'll try to focus a little bit better on the back end here. You can see, looks really good. Working around the side here, you can see one of the last of the defects. This bump, their little dent that was caused by the previous owner. Not sure how this was done, but you can see that the bodywork is pushed in a little bit here, and then there's some chipping and scratching in a couple areas as a result. And then there's a couple scratches up here and some scuffing on this lower part of the door. This has not spread or gotten any worse in my ownership. You know, like I said, this chipping here hasn't spread, and then, you know, it hasn't rusted underneath either, which is good. And then again, you know, you stand back from it, you really can't tell that it's there unless you're really looking for it. While we're on this side, we'll come down this side a little more. You can see, pretty solid shape. This is what the other side mirror looks like. So you can see this one's not as bad. But it does still have a little bit of the paint chipping up underneath it. I think my understanding is that's a pretty common issue with these E60 and E61 5 Series. The paint just kind of chips on those mirrors. The wheels do have some curb rash on every single one of them, but you know, they are balanced. They're completely in round. You can't tell that, you know, the wheels aren't in bad shape mechanically, so to speak. And they hold air perfectly. There's no issues there. I am selling this car with a complete set of winter tires and wheels. These are I forget the specific BMW code. Cosmetically, these rims, which are 17-inch, just like the ones on the car, are in better shape than the ones on the car. I've just always preferred that wheel style, so I've left them on the car. But you know, if you chose to, you could swap the rims out for the ones that have the winter tires on them and run those on the car if you did not care for the cosmetic shape of the ones that were on the car. But again, you know, you stand back and, you know, from this angle, you really can't tell that the wheels are too beat up. So yeah, and then just actually while we're here, a quick note on the winter tires. These are Bridgestone Blizzaks. They're, I don't know, a handful of years old, but you know, they're always kept inside. They're only used, I've only really used them twice, I believe, but they have not been used much. They're in still really good shape with a lot of life left in them. And like I said, these are BMW factory rims. These will sell with the car, the full set. So now that we've covered all the flaws, I just want to cover or go over the roof real quick. This car does have the optional panoramic sunroof, which is quite a cool feature. It does work, and I will show that in more detail on the interior tour in a second, which actually is a great segue. Let's go ahead and look at the interior. As we open the door, you can see that overall the interior is in really solid shape. There are a few minor blemishes on the steering wheel, especially on the left side. I think the previous owner only drove with one hand ever on the steering wheel, so the left side of the wheel is a little more worn than the right. Nothing too severe. The seats are in very solid shape. This car does have the cold weather package, which includes the steering wheel warmer, which is one of the most underrated luxury features of all time in my opinion. Has, of course, both up front seat warmers, and it has seat warmers for the rear seats. All right, so sitting down in the interior, again, pretty standard E60 or E61 5 Series. I did replace the shift knob about a year or so ago with the M Sport shift knob. This is a weighted shift knob, and it feels so much better than the stock one. You can see we've got the factory rubber floor mats in this car. Cup holders, which can fit a Yeti mug, by the way, which is very surprising for BMW cup holders of the era. One of the things that I love most about this car are the seats. The headrest has these awesome adjustable pillows, but you can fold this out and it just kind of contours to your head and holds your head in place. Extremely comfortable. Not to mention the fact that these are electronically controlled. Pretty unnecessary, but cool nonetheless. There are electronic bolsters, which squeeze you every single time you sit down in the driver's seat and close the door. So yeah, you can see the bolsters moving there, kind of cool. But they hug you very nicely, and you feel very secure and in place when you are driving the car. Additionally, of course, they have the BMW thigh supports. They've been doing that in their seats for a very long time. The seat bottoms themselves are just very comfortable, and they're just nice leather. But one thing that I love the most is the tilt feature. Every seat, of course, has a forward and back tilt, or to some extent, but these seats fold the top part. Watch this. This is just the upper back support moving forward and back. Now that is something that I never even realized how badly I would want that until I sat in these seats. It is absolutely incredible how much of a difference that makes. A lot of seats, they just kind of feel flat as a board. You sit in these seats and this upper back support turns into your back, and all of a sudden you just feel so much more planted in the seat, and it distributes the weight so much more easily. It makes long car rides an absolute dream in this thing. So these seats are number one. This car does have the optional pano sunroof, which is a very nice feature. Here we are opening the cover. And it is a hard cover. It's not, see how thick that is? It's none of those, it's not that stupid, super thin fabric that you can practically see halfway through. And the glass itself, you can see it's all functional. Alright, let's close this up and we will go look in the trunk real quick. Alrighty, back here at the trunk. See, electronic tailgate and nice spacious boot. It does come with the optional luggage cover, which you can utilize as well as a little gate for the dog if you have the dog in the trunk or the back seat. We do have underneath here the spare tire with all the tools. Oh, also, like I mentioned, this does have the cold weather package, so that pass-through between the front and rear seats actually is a ski bag, and I'll show you that now. This here is where the optional ski bag lies, as you can see. This is a bag that you can fold out, and in the event that you need to put wet snow skis or snow-covered snow skis up through the trunk up to the front or to the middle row, you can keep your interior dry. So nice little luxury touch that BMW thought of with the cold weather package. There's this stain from the previous owner. I don't know what this is. It looks a little sad, but it's not the end of the world in my personal opinion. A nice big armrest here with some storage and a couple of cup holders. All right, now let's take a quick look under the hood. So here is the beautiful, in my opinion, N52 engine. This is the naturally aspirated 3-liter inline 6. If you're unfamiliar, of course, it's kind of a lower power engine. It's not known to be a total hot rod. I think it's maybe rated at 240-ish horsepower, I believe. But it is one of the most reliable engines that BMW has ever made. So, of course, it does feature the Valvetronic system as far as how it does its throttling and variable valve timing and lift. But by the time this engine was made, this system was able to be run very reliably, and BMW was able to resolve all of the earlier issues they had with it. Aside from that, I mean, of course, it's not turbocharged. Like I said, it's naturally aspirated, so you don't have issues with turbos failing or leaking oil lines or what have you. And additionally, it is port injected, so you don't have the issues that come along with direct injection, meaning high pressure pumps failing, high pressure injectors failing. It's a very straightforward, very simple engine aside from the Valvetronic system itself. Even that, like I said, has been made very reliably by the time this generation of engine came around. A friend of mine recently sold a E90 3 Series, same generation as the E65 series, and he had about 330,000 miles with an N52 original engine in it. So these engines are known to be extremely reliable, of course, as long as you maintain them correctly. On the note of maintenance, that's a perfect segue. Let's now go over all of the things that I have done to this car in my ownership. Now, just a quick preface, I am a former mechanic, so when I go over all of this, I do want to just say I did DIY the majority of all this work. I have receipts for everything, of course, but the only thing that I actually went to shops for is if I didn't have the equipment, like for example alignments or tire changes or AC recharges, etc. Everything else I'm fully qualified to do, and the car, as you will see in pictures and videos, is in very good running order with everything that I have done to it. Additionally, I am quite proactive, we'll say it like that. You'll see in the list that I have done a lot of things to this car. The list of things that I've done to the car is quite extensive. Inherently, this is a 16-year-old higher mileage BMW, so in order to keep it running well and to get it refreshed mechanically, I have gone through it pretty extensively, as you will see, to replace a lot of different parts. So with that, let's go ahead and look at everything that I've done. All right, now first things first, let's take a quick look at the Carfax report. As you can see in the top right corner, this was printed in 2018, so it was when I purchased the car. At that time, you can see that there were 2 previous owners, making me the 3rd owner of the car. Additionally, there were no accidents on the history report before I bought it, and I did not wreck the car at all during my ownership, so that is still current. There are no accidents on the report. So that's basically the gist. Everything else basically just shows that, regular maintenance was done in previous ownership, etc., etc. Normal Carfax stuff. But the point is, no accidents, and I am the 3rd owner. Okay, now getting into the service history. As you can see here, I've got a spreadsheet here showing the date of the service, the actual service performed, and the mileage at which the service was performed. Now, I'm not going to go over every single part, considering there's a lot of line items here. I put every little thing, including oil changes and even, whatever, any kind of small thing that I did to the car, but I'm going to just kind of touch on some of the main topics. So, all right, starting out, we can see that the suspension was done at 135,000 miles, the right front. I ended up doing the left front at 145. I also did the several of the ball joints, including the lower ball joint and tie rod end, which was replaced at 145,000. Front brake pads and rotors were replaced then. Those are the same ones that are still in the car. Moving on, we can see we did the rear brake pads and rotors at 147,000. I had some AC issues. One of the Schrader valves was leaking, so I had to have that recharged several times. I repainted the front bumper at 148,000 miles because it had a lot of rock chips, and so I went ahead and just had the whole thing repainted. You can see the receipt for that in my receipts. Moving on from that, there was a coolant transfer tube from the expansion tank to the top of the radiator that's plastic and it ages and cracks. That happened to me, so I had to replace that. I had a hard brake line go out on me, so the brake lines going to the rear wheels, both the hard and soft brake lines, are new as of 152,000 miles. Transmission fluid, rear diff and front diff fluid replacement at 156,000. Then at 161,000, I did the electronic water pump, thermostat. I replaced the expansion tank, did an oil change, oil filter housing gasket, oil cooler gasket replacement, and I did idler pulley, tensioner pulley, and serpentine belt at that time as well, just kind of as a preventative thing. The aging plastics in these cooling systems like to go out, which will then leave you stranded. So the good news is the entire cooling system, anything that can age out and break due to wearing plastics or aging plastics, is replaced on this coolant system. Moving on, the really, really big one happened to me last May. My dual mass flywheel went out. The seals on it completely let loose. So at that time, I replaced the flywheel, clutch, pressure plate, rear main seal, secondary O2 sensors because they were looking a little bit sad, slave cylinder, throwout bearing, release arm, and the clutch release arm and pivot point. I also did the drive shaft flex plate because it showed a little bit of cracking. The exhaust hangers due to a little bit of aging and cracking as well. Upper radiator coolant line was replaced, the main one going just underneath the oil cooler area. I also did the Mickey Mouse coolant line. It's called that because of the shape of the bracket that mounts to the engine. Normally this is a plastic line, and I replaced it with the metal one to make it more robust. And I also replaced the engine mounts at that time. Moving on, I did both the fuel pump and the pressure regulator. Those are basically both modules in the fuel tank. It is a saddle tank, so both modules have been replaced. They didn't go out on me. I felt that the fuel pump was getting a little bit loud, so I figured it was maybe on its way out. I also replaced the alternator at that time, and I also did the oil non-return valves on the side of the engine. These are known to kind of get coked up over time and then can cause your Vanos system to not work properly. I also did the Vanos solenoid valves at that same time as well. Coil packs and spark plugs are new as of 165,000 miles. I did have the transfer case go out on me, so that is a completely new transfer case. That also includes the servo motor, the resistor, and all of the plastic gears, of course, internally that like to wear and fail are obviously completely new as well. I also did the valve cover gasket at that time. And then at 166,000 miles, I put 4 new Continental Performance all-season tires on the car. These, only have a couple thousand miles on them at this point. And then lastly, the AC compressor went out on me. It hadn't completely failed yet. However, the bearings inside of the AC compressor were going out. So I replaced that before it completely failed altogether. So that is a list of everything that I have done to this car in my ownership. As you can see, I've done a lot of things since I have purchased the car. This car is, for being a 16-year-old car, mechanically it is very sound after everything that I have done and replaced. I've had my hands in just about everything to refresh it mechanically. One other thing I want to do is let's do a quick cold start. Okay, to prove that this is cold to you, I will now touch the exhaust manifold. Okay, there's my ring touching the exhaust manifold. And also we can pop off the expansion tank cap, which this would spew coolant everywhere if the engine was actually hot, because this system would be under pressure. All right, so it's cold.
all very normal noises, nothing crazy. It started very smoothly, and that was, like I said, a true cold start.
There's so many understated luxury features of this car. One of which is famously BMW applied these awesome headlights that bend whenever you go around a corner. The headlights turn into the corner for you. So that's pretty freaking cool in my opinion. Also has fog lights, as you can see. Those do work, they're just not turned on right this second. Go around back real quick so you can hear that. You can see the exhaust is only coming out of one side right now. It does have an exhaust valve that flips and opens when you get under heavy acceleration. Yes, the valve does work. You can see no exhaust leaks or anything. It's very quiet back here.
All right, now sitting inside the car, one final thing to mention really quick is that the TPMS module is completely broken. The module is dead, unfortunately. So you're always greeted by this amber glow of the TPMS light, which is kind of a bummer. However, it doesn't cause any issues in driving. The module itself is dead. I've tried to scan for codes and remedy this situation before, and yeah, the whole system is kaput. So now that we've done a cold start, let's go ahead and go for a little drive. So now we're up at about 60 miles an hour. This car is impressively smooth. You can just tell that, you know, they built cars so well back then, and of course they still do today. But you know, this thing is just so solid, and it rides so well. Here, we'll turn off here and go up this road. Of course, manual transmission, so pedals are in wonderful position for heel toe. And also, like I've mentioned previously, it's not a hot rod. It's not all that fast of a car, but it doesn't have to be. You know, it's a daily driver kind of car. At this point, we're up at 70 miles an hour. Again, same story. Very smooth, very quiet. Of course, I have the radio off right now. Let's slow down again, turn onto this road. Just gonna turn around and head back. I've always loved the intake note of this car. Hopefully you can hear that just fine through the microphone here, but it has such an understated but very just good sound. So it's a nice, you know, and it's not overbearing at all. It never gets, it's not a drony sound. Of course, it's the completely stock intake and stock exhaust, so you don't have any kind of drony sounds as you drive. But it's still enough of like a very sporty sound to just let you know, this is a BMW. This is a car that can carve up a back road better than most, and it's a station wagon, So it just kind of gives you that emotional charge every time you accelerate, and it's just a relatively low power family car. All right, here we go. And with that, that's the little test drive. Alrighty, well, I think we're going to call it there. thank you so much for going on this tour with me of my 2007 BMW 530xi. I'm very sad to see this car go. However, I'm excited for the next owner, and I think that they will have a lot of fun with this car, just as I have for many years to come. So thank you so much for tuning in to FunAhead TV, and I will see you guys next time.